am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Silly Jedi! Silly Jedi!
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
Hello, what have we here?
Hello there.
At last! Where have you been?
Nice of you guys to drop by.
Ah, good. New acquisitions.
I don't know. I have a bad feeling about this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Wars Car Talk. It's the official Jedi Toy Masters podcast. I'm Maurice, and if you want to know who we are, you can hit us up on Instagram. Check us out at Jedi Toy Masters. We also have a Instagram account for Star Wars Car Talk, although that one is basically all previous episodes are there as well if you want to watch them there or listen to them there. You can catch these on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. I hope you leave a like and maybe a share just to kind of get the word out, get that algorithm rolling. And the same thing with algorithms, you know, they say that if you leave a nice iTunes review, you help the podcast spread its wings and fly, and that's what we're hoping to do one day here. But so yeah, if you're watching, thanks for watching. If you're listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts, I thank you as well. And man, it's been quite a summer here in the north. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting where I am. In the northeast. Right. East is that way, right? Yeah. Okay, got it. Yeah, you know, I've not been able to do as many episodes this summer as I used to. Right now, the show's been coming out bi-weekly for the most part. I apologize for those that are like sitting, waiting in anticipation, or you know, sometimes you open up the podcast app and you get like what the latest episodes are, and then you don't see like the one, you know, you recognize some of those. You know, I know there's certain podcasts that I listen to that like every day, like if I'm driving and I'll put on the podcast app and I don't see like a latest episode of a podcast that I'm familiar with. Like I don't see like a, you know, that little icon, that little art album cover. And I'm like, hey, there's no new episode, you know, and then I'll, you know, you continue to scroll and you go to the next podcast that you listen to. But, you know, for those that maybe are in that scenario, I apologize, and I hope that you can forgive me. But it's been quite a summer, quite a busy summer as a family. And but one thing is for sure, the Star Wars family is always, man, there's always something going on. And the big family this summer has been the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch, wow, what a show this has turned out to be. I mean, we just, you know, I'm a little late to the game, but, you know, we just watched the finale. You know, we took a week off and as a family, and, you know, we came back, and the first thing my boys said was, they're like, Daddy, we got to watch the last episode of the Bad Batch. And it's funny because for whatever reason, I thought we watched the final episode. I thought part one of the finale was the finale. Like, for some reason, I could have sworn that when we put that episode on, that's the one where they start destroying Camino at the end and they're trying to escape. Like, for whatever reason, I thought the episode ended with like them like getting, you know, like leaving Camino, and then, you know, the starship starting to destroy Camino. Like, I thought that's how the episode ended, because well, I know the episode ended like that, but I thought that was the season finale. And for some reason I thought, I guess it, you know, it played chapter one and part two like back to back. I don't know what happened to my brain, but thank goodness my sons are younger than me, obviously, and a little sharper, and they were like, no, Dad, we got to watch part two, which is the finale. So we sat and we watched it, and wow, you know, I think of the Star Wars animation everything that's Star Wars animated, there's only been two episodes that have, of all the episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels, and now Bad Batch, and even Resistance, if you want to count that, there's only been really 2 episodes that have moved me emotionally and had me at the edge of my seat. The first time that happened, it was the final episode of Clone Wars, when Rex and Ahsoka are trying to escape, and Order 66 had just happened, and just that, and that whole sequence, that whole action piece of them escaping, and the clones, following orders and trying to capture them or kill them, and Rex and the Y-wing and Ahsoka, flying through the air and then catching the Y-wing, and then that emotional ending of knowing that Rex and Ahsoka, had to bury so many clones, and she just kind of drops the lightsaber, and then it transitions to like who knows how long in the future when Vader is there and he finds the lightsaber, and that ending got me. Like I was at the edge of my seat. I was like sweating. And then that ending was just this bittersweet, because what comes next. Like, we see them again in Rebels, and now, we see Ahsoka in Mandalorian, so she's around up to that point. But what an ending to the Clone Wars. Like, wow, the end of the Clone Wars. And man, as though that wasn't emotional enough, the second time that this ever happened to me has been this time, watching this season finale of Bad Batch. Like when you get those interior shots of the Camino facility right before the Empire starts blasting it to smithereens, and like you remember, oh wow, look at the cafeteria where they all ate, and look at the little cloning tube chambers where they were like created, as infants and whatnot, and little embryos, whatever, and look at the hallways, and oh my gosh, that was so emotional. Like the idea that, when you think about the Clone Wars, George Lucas basically said that like the entire Star Wars saga, the prequels and the original trilogy together, is the tragedy of Darth Vader, or the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. Like like that. The prequels is basically the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, and the original trilogy is the redemption of Anakin Skywalker, right? And when you think about the Clone Wars, really, it's the way it ends. It's the tragedy of the clones, and man, like we've. Dave Filoni and George Lucas and the entire team over there, they created so many stories. They invested so much time into character development for clones. For essentially, they're clones. They're just copies of Jango Fett, but yet each of them, and so many of them, had such personalities, such character arcs. You think about Rex and Wolf and Echo and Fives and all these random names that we now know, for those of us that are fans of Clone Wars. And I was late to the game when it comes to Clone Wars fandom. Like I wasn't actively watching when the shows aired. I began watching like later on, when the show was on Netflix. That's basically when I started watching it on and off and trying to catch up and trying to binge whenever I could. And then once it made the leap to Disney Plus, that's when we kind of finished watching them all and caught up so that we can be ready for season 7. But we, as fans, we went through this journey with these clones, and as traumatic as the series finale of Clone Wars was, this was equally as emotional. Just that this whole place, the Empire essentially is trying to erase it from existence. And I guess that's what they do, right? Like they're forging the galaxy the way they want it, the Emperor, through the Empire, and they're essentially, trying to erase the past. And isn't that quite interesting? Because that's kind of like what, not to bring the sequel trilogy into it, but that's kind of what Kylo Ren's philosophy was, which is basically like kill the past, forget the past, kill it if you have to. And that's basically what the Empire was doing during this time. They've always done is forget the past, kill it if you have to, destroy it. They wiped out any memory of Jedi. They wiped out any memory of what democracy was and having a democracy in the galaxy. They wiped out this cloning facility and phased out using clone troopers and replaced them with stormtroopers to kind of just like erase the fact that we had clones and we had all this. Like, just erase it, kill it if you have to. And I think that's what they're doing. And so it was quite emotional. And then of course what a thriller, what an action thriller this episode turned out to be. Just them trying to escape the Camino facility. And I gotta say, like, the animation has been kicked up to like 110 because the way that they were working with darkness and shadows and water and all these, they're escaping Camino. There's no power. They're like, and wow, they're like walking around with flashlights and you see the illumination of the flashlights all around. I was so impressed with just how the idea that that we're watching essentially a cartoon, like that already, like that leaves your mind and you are just so in the story and in what's going on that you forget that these are, like, forget about the fact that they're fictional characters, because they are. So are all the characters in the films, live action films and shows and stuff. But you forget that they're animated characters. And you really, like, you are so into it. And I think it's a testament to how great the animation is, how great the artistry is, and how great the storytelling is. Like, I was super impressed. Not to just completely be a fanboy here, but let's face it, it's Star Wars Car Talk. I talk the good, the bad, and the ugly. And in this case, this is the good, man. This is really, really good. The Bad Batch, if you're whether you're a super fan or a casual fan of Star Wars and you just stumbled onto this podcast, I gotta tell you, you gotta watch Bad Batch. If you've not been watching Bad Batch, you gotta watch Bad Batch. I apologize as well because I'm yawning. This is like my morning commute drive, and it's basically the best time. Just to give you a peek behind the curtain, this is the best time for me to record this. But because I'm talking so much and it's the morning, I tend to yawn. So I apologize for that. I'm gonna try to take deeper breaths so that I can have more oxygen, and then I don't have to yawn as much. But I gotta say again, Bad Batch, Dave Filoni, that whole team, amazing job. What a finale, man! It was kind of heartbreaking to see that Crosshair, even after everything that they went through, like, he's still remaining loyal to the Empire, even though they basically deserted him and left him for dead. He thinks he has a future with the Empire, and his inhibitor chip was removed, and he's still like this. Like, it's kind of a bummer, man. I was really hoping that we would end this season with kind of like a redemption arc for him, and that he would kind of like, maybe like, even if it was like reluctantly like rejoin the team. Oh, excuse me. There I go again. It would have been nice if he would have at least, maybe stayed with them and kind of that would have been like a nice little story arc for next season, that within the first couple episodes he finally like kind of returns to his ways, and not to his ways, but returns to being part of the family, but I guess we could still see that in the next season. And how cool is it that we are going to get another season of Bad Batch, that this is not a one and done situation, that I'm curious as to whether that was always the plan to do that. Like, maybe I'm wondering if they had a plan to write the show in a way where what we saw in these two parts of the finale, if there was a different type of ending that they worked out that would basically essentially end the show, so it could be just a one season story arc, or if they always intended for this to go on to another season, or they intentionally ended it that way so there would be a desire for another season. So it's I'm curious for that, but I'm glad that we are getting another season. I think there were a lot of filler episodes within these 16 episode show. Like this, it was 16 episodes. I think there was like maybe one too many filler episodes. Like I think it almost seemed like half of the episodes were filler. Like you had like a main episode and then a filler, a main episode and a filler. And I guess that's like the formula for TV. I guess that you always kind of have to do that. But I think when it's only 16 episodes and you're releasing them week to week, like I think maybe like one or two less filler episodes would have been better. Like I think that there could have been a lot more story development, a lot more advancement of the plot if they just did away with just a couple of those filler episodes. Like so, or make it 18 episodes instead of 16. So that way we get a little bit more meat. Like I feel like this season left you hungry for more. Maybe that was the intention. Let's give them just enough to keep them coming back for more and salivating for more. And it worked. If that was the case, it worked, because I love, sitting down once a week and watching Star Wars content with my family, with my boys. We love that. We love doing it. Those 2 seasons of The Mandalorian, and we loved it when Clone Wars came back for that last season, and I'm loving it now with Bad Batch, and now it's kind of like, wow, so like the summer is over, Star Wars is back on break, and now we have to wait to see like what's next. Like who knows? I don't know. I mean, will the Book of Boba Fett be ready for like a fall or maybe a winter release? I don't know. There's rumors, now we're kind of transitioning into rumors, but there's a rumor, I guess, that Mandalorian season 3 has started shooting or is about to start shooting. I don't know how long that takes. I gotta, I guess, do some research on that. Like how long did it take to shoot season 1 and how long did it take to shoot season 2? I imagine it took less time to shoot season 2 because they kind of, they were learning as they went with season 1, with the volume and all that, and now by season 2 they kind of had a good handle on it. So now it's probably, with the fact that they're already shooting the Cassian Andor series, and you can kind of cross use a lot of sets and stuff with those shows, and they're also in the middle of shooting Obi-Wan, so Obi-Wan and Cassian Andor kind of take place in the same time period, the same era. So I would imagine it's there could be a lot more like cross usage of sets and locations and stuff like that, and just dressing it up differently. But we'll see. So I mean, it's amazing to think that we're gonna get an Obi-Wan series. We got Cassian Andor. We got Mandalorian Season 3, and then we got the Book of Boba Fett. 4 Star Wars live-action shows coming out for the next, like, at least 2 years. So, for the next 2 years, we're going to have a lot of Star Wars content. And then we still have the Ahsoka show to look forward to. We still have Republic Commandos or something like that. I forgot the name of that show, but the one that, you know, Cara Dune was supposed to headline, and now we don't know. So it's just so interesting to see that we're getting so much great content, and in the spirit of that, I know by the time this episode comes out, you probably, depending on when you're listening to it, the Disney Gallery episode on Mandalorian Season 2, specifically the return of Luke Skywalker, will have dropped on Disney Plus. I think it's August 25th. So if I'm not mistaken, by the time this episode comes out, it would have already dropped. You probably already saw it. If you haven't, go check it out. I know I will. And StarWars.com and on Star Wars on YouTube released a 50-minute little teaser to a snippet of that show, of that episode, and it showed, you know, like, it's Dave Filoni speaking about how important it is for Star Wars to be positive and to bring joy and to encourage people, and it's for kids, and, like, basically, I don't know what the rest of the context of what he was talking about in that interview was, but just based on what he's saying, what they chose to include in this clip of him speaking, and he's basically then talking over the fact that they had Mark Hamill on set in the Luke black outfit that we saw in the season finale of Mandalorian, you know, coming through those doors with the lightsaber and the hood on. And I'm curious to see, like, did they film him for reference and then kind of like replaced him with whoever the stunt double was that they used to do the deep fake or whatever. I'm curious as to how they pulled that off, what technique they used, how they did it. I really hope we get an interview with Mark Hamill about his experience about coming back to do that. But based on what Dave Filoni says in that little snippet, and based on, like, the reaction, like he says, you know, the crew and everybody there involved were just, like, googly-eyed and so happy for this, being able to film this. You get the impression that the people that make Star Wars, the real people that make Star Wars, that are making Star Wars, like the crew, and like people like Dave Filoni, like, you know, these people, I have a feeling, were just as dissatisfied with the sequel trilogy as we all were as fans. I really think Dave Filoni, whether blatantly or kind of like on the down low, or maybe that is the direction that they're going now, and they're just not saying it directly, but they kind of are in a way. I think Dave Filoni's job is to basically damage control and kind of retcon the sequel trilogy. There was a rumor a while back, and there's a video too on YouTube. If I find it, I'll link it below, but if I don't, just do a quick search for sequel trilogy, world multiverse, Star What Multiverse. I think it's basically a good search parameter. But the rumor basically says, you know, what if, you know, if you guys remember Star Wars Rebels, you remember the world between worlds, remember Ezra pulling Ahsoka out of that final moment when she was battling Darth Vader and he was about to kill her, and he pulled her out of that moment, and by the time she went back into that moment, you know, the destruction of the temple had already happened, Vader was already gone, and she was able to kind of escape and live on, right? So that means, if you think about in terms of multiverse, that means that there's a version where Ahsoka got killed in that moment. That was the final moment of Ahsoka battling Darth Vader, and he destroys her. And that is kind of like the version that continues on into the original trilogy and subsequently the sequel trilogy, because the films are kind of like the canon, right? But in this animated show, Ezra saved Ahsoka and stopped that from happening. So that creates a new timeline. And that timeline now is the timeline of Star Wars Rebels, when, you know, we find out that, Rex fought in Return of the Jedi, and that Ahsoka and, now that Ahsoka's alive, Ahsoka and Sabine are going to go out and try to find Ezra. Now that same Ahsoka is the Ahsoka we see in The Mandalorian, because obviously she's alive. So that means that The Mandalorian takes place in this new timeline. So this new timeline, according to this new timeline, what we've seen so far is everything up to whatever amount of years after Return of the Jedi. So there is no sequel trilogy in this timeline. So sequel trilogy hasn't happened yet. And now, season finale of Mandalorian, we see Luke Skywalker. You know, so as far as we're concerned, as far as like the TV canon, if you want to call it the TV canon versus the cinematic canon, according to the TV canon, everything up to Return of the Jedi is canon, and then The Mandalorian. So if you think of it that way, now that completely makes the sequel trilogy like the other timeline. It's basically, that's the what if. The sequel trilogy has become the what if. And you know, Marvel's doing this whole what if animated show. I saw like an episode and a half, and I think it's amazing. I actually think a lot of these what if stories are turning out to be even better than what we saw in the movie, but that's a talk for another time and another podcast. If anybody that has a Marvel podcast and wants to invite me on to talk about that, I gladly will do that. But now I'm thinking, so now there's two timelines. Now there's two canons. Actually, technically there's three, when you think about it. There's the original expanded universe that's now Legends. So that can be considered like on a completely different timeline. We have the original trilogy, everything up to the original trilogy, followed by the Disney films of the sequel trilogy. That's like another timeline. And then we have the branch that happened, that branched off, the timeline that branched off from that moment that Ezra saved Ahsoka in the world between worlds. So now, based on that theory, now if you think about that as a theory, this isn't it. This is not factual. This is just like I'm piecing together theories from other people and kind of mixing in my own thoughts. If you think of it that way, now that means that we're in a new timeline. So now everything Dave Filoni does with the Bad Batch, with the Ahsoka show, with even that the New Republic, Commandos of the New Republic, or whatever the heck it's called. Even with that show is connected to the Mandalorian universe. So similarly to how the CW created Arrow, and then they created the Arrowverse, which in turn turned into a specific Earth, basically, and then we find out that there's a multiverse and multiple Earths, and I think similar to that, the TV shows that we're seeing on Disney Plus that are Star Wars related are part of this Mandalorian verse. Technically it really should be the Star Wars Rebels verse, because it started because of Ezra taking Ahsoka out of that moment and bringing her into the world between worlds, and created that branch reality, that branch, universe. So here we are now living are experiencing Star Wars up to Mandalorian's timeline, and every other show that's not Obi-Wan or Andor take place in the Mandalorian timeline moving forward. So you can make the argument that we are going to live in this timeline for a while. Like, they're going to try to juice as many stories and adventures out of Ahsoka and the Mandalorian and even Luke Skywalker, leading up to what would have been maybe perhaps George Lucas's episode 7, 8, and 9. And who knows, maybe they will finally use the story treatments that Lucas had written for 7, 8, 9, and maybe that will be the premise for, maybe beyond these TV shows, though, we'll see like a book, we'll see some books or some comics, or maybe even an animated show. Like, how amazing would it be if they do an animated George Lucas's episode 7, 8, and 9 as an animated show? You can literally do 3 seasons. 3 seasons. Every season is the equivalent of one of the episodes of the films, and you give us in animated form, because obviously, we don't have Carrie Fisher with us anymore, so we can definitely have her in animated form with a voice actress that sounds like her. We have Mark Hamill, who's more than willing to come back as Luke. You can get somebody that sounds like Harrison Ford to do Han Solo. I mean, like, let's be real, he's not coming back. You got Chewie, you got Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. I mean, you can totally do this. But I digress. Bringing it full circle, I think The Bad Batch was an amazing episode. I think The Bad Batch is an amazing show. And I think Dave Filoni is really hitting, like, really kind of like putting that flag in the ground with this show, saying, not only can I one up Clone Wars, but I'm going to show you how good animated Star Wars on TV can be. And I'm also working with Jon Favreau on basically creating some of the best Star Wars content you've ever seen. And hush hush, I'm revamping the Star Wars timeline and the Star Wars canon. So I think that's what he's doing. And that snippet from StarWars.com, from Star Wars on YouTube about a Disney gallery, if you hear it, if you listen to it, watch it again, listen to what he's saying. He keeps pushing that. He keeps reminding us that Star Wars is about kids, it's about fun, it's about learning things, about life. It's about family. It's not supposed to be so dark and convoluted and adult. Basically what George Lucas has been saying all along. And I think Disney's approach to the sequel trilogy was basically, let's recapture them, let's get them with nostalgia, and once we have them in our grip, we'll just then show them what we want to show them, and they're just gonna have to take it. I genuinely feel like that was the attitude. Like, let's get them back here by hitting them with a little bit of nostalgia. That's why The Force Awakens was so popular. That's why they jumped on that idea. J.J. Abrams, Lawrence Kasdan, going back to the Star Wars well, to what works, and basically kind of like doing a sequel, reboot, revamp of Star Wars with the things that we remember, and changing it up a little bit so that we can move forward in a different direction. And then by the time you got to Rian Johnson and then J.J. Abrams again, it was just a whole big old mess. A big old mess, just a bunch of propaganda and agendas being thrown at us, and it went from being Star Wars to just being, I don't even know, just any any science fiction franchise that has sequels. You know, they were just, you know, it was like watching, like when a show, you know, I love some of these shows on TV, but you know, they get to season 5, season 6, season 7, and you start to see the cracks. Like you start to see that they're running out of ideas, they're running out of steam, they're just like, you know, what are we doing like here? You know, like, and I think that's kind of what happened. They didn't have a plan, they didn't know what they were doing. You know, they let Rian Johnson, you know, do whatever he wanted, and for the good that The Last Jedi had, it was overshadowed by just the bad. And then we never got to really see what they were doing, which was, let's get a different creator for each movie so that each movie can have a different tone, a different creator behind it, but yet still one singular story, which I kind of dug. I kind of respected that. You didn't want to just have one director do all of them. Like George Lucas did the prequels, and he probably could have just done the first one and then had other people direct the other ones, but it could have still been his story, and I think it would have been better for it. You know, the minute he brought in Dave Filoni for the Clone Wars, he was still heavily involved in it, but what made the Clone Wars great was Dave Filoni's direction. You know, sequel trilogy, I'm sorry, it keeps coming back to that, and I'm just so disappointed by it. I know if you love the sequel trilogy, if you love them, I don't blame you for liking them. At the end of the day, it's your Star Wars, and I can't take that away from you. It's just I have such a hard time with it because I just feel like it could have been so much better. And not in the way that like anything could be so much better. You could like watch any movie and be like, oh, that could have been better. Of course, and every movie can be better. But this is Star Wars. This is an established franchise. Like, they knew what they were doing, they're getting themselves into. Like, you don't mess around with this. You know, this is like you paid all this money for this franchise to just go in this wacky direction. I'm sorry. Anyway, guys, I'm going to cut it here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And please check out some of our other videos if you're watching us on YouTube. Check out some other episodes here on I was going to say the stream, but on wherever you get your podcasts. Just listen to us. Listen to this show, and you know, I've done some range of topics. I'm still trying to figure out how I can get some guests on here. But yeah, Bad Batch 3, 4, 5 thumbs up. If I can give it 10 thumbs up, if I had 10 thumbs, I would. If all my fingers on my hands were thumbs, I would give them all those. But thank you so much, guys, for watching. What do you guys think? What did you think? Hit me up in the comments of this video, or you know, hit me up on Instagram at Jedi Toy Masters, and let me know, what did you think of the Bad Batch? What do you think of all of what this Disney Gallery episode of Luke Skywalker's return? What do you think that's about? What'd you think? And what do you think of like this theory about, you know, the multiverse in Star Wars, and maybe we're living in a new timeline for Star Wars? Who knows? What'd you think of the sequel trilogy? Give me your defense of it. I want to hear both sides. But yeah, guys, again, thank you so much. I'm sorry for this sun that's like burning half of my face in this video. It's really sunny this morning. Hope you have a great week. Happy back to school for those going back to school, and for those parents that are happy that the kids are going back to school. And guys, we'll catch you next time. But remember,
The Force will be with you, always.